Good morning. I'm Tom Alston, and the lady sitting next to me is Rene Banglesdorf, and this is the very first webinar that we've attempted to do as an interview style. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to play you a YouTube video that I make about our webinars. Welcome to another Aero Marine free webinar. Let me tell you who we are. We help people who are buying aircraft, vessels, and vehicles to legally avoid the California tax. Just because you're a non-resident of California doesn't mean you're not subject to their assessment. So be smart about all of that. We do these for you because we're trying to give you free information. We do this all the time because you need it, because you've asked for it. And if you've got any subjects that you'd like us to cover that you haven't heard us cover in the past, just send me an email or send an email to Kelsey or call us at 916-691-9192 and we'll get you the information that you asked for. All right, so this young lady is Rene Banglesdorf, a friend of mine for years. She's absolutely awesome. She's a powerhouse in the aviation industry, and I'm going to let her tell you her story.
Oh my goodness. Well, first I'm going to try to live up to that. And Tom, thank you so much for inviting me to be on. And thank you for letting me challenge you to do an interview instead of a webinar presentation, because I think those are a lot of fun. I think that we get to cover some things that we wouldn't necessarily have thought of because we get some audience participation. So if you're in the audience today, I would love for you to send in chat, Q&A, or let Tom tell you in a minute how to send in questions, because I really want this to be interactive. As Tom mentioned, my name's Rene. I am the co-founder and CEO of a company called Charlie Bravo Aviation. We celebrated our 12th anniversary 3 days ago, and we buy and sell corporate aircraft worldwide. We've done business in 42 different countries. We've sold hundreds of aircraft over the years, represented hundreds of buyers for aircraft, and have a lot of fun doing it. And one of the reasons that we have so much fun buying and selling aircraft is because we get to know so many interesting people. The people like Tom and his staff that we work with, or people who are in the audience today that we've worked on transactions with, and it's been a ton of fun. But then I actually started a new adventure this year. And Tom, I don't even know if you know this or not, but my business mentor for the last 4 years is a guy by the name of Michael Hyatt. And he promotes a product called the Full Focus Planner. He's a fantastic businessman. His leadership development company has been in the Inc. 500 fastest growing private companies, I think for the last 3 or 4 years. But he's invited me to join him as a business coach. It doesn't take anything away from Charlie Bravo whatsoever. It helps me to become better at what I'm doing. But I get to go out and meet business owners and help them grow and scale their businesses without losing their margin and their balance in life with their family and the other things that are important to them. So that's a little bit about me, but I want this to be about our audience today. And I want to hear some of the questions that you've already gathered for me, Tom, and then hear from the audience as well to find out what they're thinking and what they have questions about.
I'm ready to go. First of all, I want the audience to notice that when Rene talks, she does it with passion because she really believes in helping people. That's one of the reasons why she's also doing, excuse me if I speak for you, young lady, why she's also doing her aircraft sales as well as the business coaching. One of the reasons that she's so successful is because passion sells. So first question for you. Well, actually, my first question you already answered. I was going to ask you how many years you've been in the aircraft business. So recently you did a survey on what people wanted to know in aviation. What were the 3 top questions for 2020 in regards to the aviation industry?
You know, Tom, I did this survey to find out what people find most frustrating about buying or selling an aircraft. And that was my primary goal for conducting that survey. And I got a couple hundred responses. And overwhelmingly, what I heard is that the industry's a little bit fractured. You know, some people get really great information about one plane, but not thorough information about another aircraft when they're thinking about selecting an aircraft. I heard one person say that they have 15 different vendors that they work with in an aircraft transaction, from a paint and interior shop to the pre-purchase inspection to attorney to a broker. Across the board, there are a lot of people involved. So that gives lots of touch points. It slows things down. It can create chaos or confusion. And sometimes it makes the deal seem more like a lawsuit than an acquisition, which should be really fun and exciting. So my goal in conducting the survey was really to come up with the trigger areas that cause friction to see if, as an industry, we can reduce some of those.
So is there one of those triggers that you can share with us?
There is one that I'm working on. I'm on the board of a startup software company called Wingform. And many of you don't know, even if you know me, that I used to work in the tech industry. I worked for a .com company out in San Francisco during the .com boom and the .com bust. Survived a little bit there and then moved into aviation after that. But it's kind of getting back to my roots in software development, learning about this product and developing this out as part of the board with Andy Grattan, who's based over in Sweden. And so that particular software platform will streamline some of those processes and give a transparency that we really don't see in the way that most transactions are conducted. So I'm really excited about that development this year. And I think you asked me about trends in 2020, which wasn't part of my survey, but I can get back to that if you want me to.
Please do.
The biggest trend that I'm seeing right now is movement in large cabin aircraft. Typically, we see movement in smaller aircraft, but we're seeing a lot of people move up. And I think that this is happening obviously because the economy is good here in the United States. I think I read that President Trump proposed additional tax cuts and additional spending today, at least the additional spending piece of that. And so that's going to continue to grow our economy. Typically about this time in an election cycle, I'm buckling down and feeling concerned about political upheaval, but I'm not feeling any of that this time around. So I think that things are good. I think that the continued bonus depreciation is probably going to get us through that hump this year. And I think that there's quite a bit of optimism that someone who would really disrupt our market is not likely to end up in the Oval Office a year from now.
Great postulate. I completely agree. Now, I want to remind our audience that you can text in your questions. I'm working off a list of questions that I have for Rene, but I will get to yours senior over mine if you send them in writing. So next question I have for you, is there a particular manufacturer or type of aircraft that is really hot right now in terms of sales?
You know, as I was looking through all of our market reports, which we publish quarterly, and I work on half of those and the rest of my team works on the other half, as I was looking through those in advance of this meeting, Gulfstream closed out the year really strong. You know, you always see a little bit of fluctuation at the end of the year with manufacturers trying to get rid of their inventory to stabilize their books for the end of the year. But I consistently saw across the entire line of Gulfstreams that those sold pretty consistently in fourth quarter. It wasn't big price drops to get rid of aircraft. I think all of the manufacturers are doing really well, with maybe the exception of Honda Jet. That industry or that line of planes seems pretty flat, but they're a new player in the industry, so we kind of expect that from them.
Got it. All right. So Even though you may have already answered this, I'm going to ask this question. What changed in the aircraft sales process over the last 3 or 4 years?
In the aircraft sales process, I don't see a ton of change, but in the aircraft buying process, I see some pretty major shifts.
So enunciate. Tell us what those are.
So what I'm seeing, and this is probably a trend that's been going on for 7 or 8 years, but it's becoming more pronounced, Tom, and that's that buyers are wanting to do their own research, and they can find an awful lot of information out there. So we'll engage with a buyer for an aircraft, and they've already looked at absolutely everything that's on the market, but they need help filtering through which option on the market is the best and which options we might know about off market. And
you know what? You're bringing up a really good point, because from our research going back years ago and today, you have merely supported what we know to be true, that people who are contacting you for the first time, if you consider in the sales process there be a number from 1 to 100, their first time they contact you, they're already at 50. So you have to, as a sales person in this industry, you have to adjust your sales process to know that they've already gotten themselves from 1 to 50 because all of the information is available. So thank you for verifying what I thought I knew.
well, it's really interesting. I love to look at other industries because I think that they show things that we'll see sometime in the future. And if you look at the automotive industry, and of course, it's a little bit more complex than our industry because of the sheer volume of sales and the dealer distribution models that they use. There are a lot more layers than what we have because of the volume and because of their setup. But if you look at the popularity of CarMax starting, 10 or 12 years ago, and then you look at them exploring models like Carvana, which is like a automotive vending machine. And I don't know if you have one in your area, but we have one here in Austin where it looks like you just push a button and the car, comes down through this vending machine like you were ordering a candy bar and gets delivered to you. We've seen some things in the model of Tesla that are really interesting distribution models, trying to shake up some of that car buying process. And I think we're going to see some more of that in the aviation industry as well. And it'll be interesting to see 10 years from now how passenger drones, how VTOLs really shape the way that our industry delivers products, pre-owned or new.
Excellent. I have a question that came in from the audience. Do you notice any trends on tightening of insurance requirements?
I haven't noticed any difference in that particularly. Maybe could you elaborate just a little bit more on that?
Well, this question came in from the audience. So whoever sent that in, Tim, my friend Tim sent that in. Elaborate for Rene, Tim, your question. There's going to be a little bit of comm lag because I'm going to have to wait for Tim to type, and he uses one finger.
Well, why don't you ask me the next question while we wait for Tim? And then if I have any additional information, I can't think of anything that's shifted notably in insurance.
Other than the fact that the prices are going up.
Well, the prices are going up, but demand or timing, no, I haven't noticed any differences.
Okay, so Tim said, we bought a new PC-12 and the pilot requirements are vastly higher.
I have heard that the times for the pilots have increased, but I think there's going to be a big counterbalance with that. We may see that as a kind of a stepping stone to raising rates, but with the pilot shortage that we're facing and the airlines pulling everybody that they can in, I think we're going to see younger pilots needing to sit right seat or get experience. And I think we're going to see some loosening of that, even though they've tightened it. I think it may be a cost raising measure that they're using preemptively for that. And just my opinion. I don't have any industry
I'm
knowledge
getting
to support that.
a lot of comments. Yes, the insurance is changing, harder to get owner pilots insured in high dollar airplanes. I've seen some information about trying to shift people from a single pilot aircraft to dual pilot aircraft for the obvious safety reason, the backup of the backup of the backup. So I think I'm getting lots of engagement from the audience who's kind of engaging with each other, where Tim says now 23-year-old is too young and 70 years old is too old. Thanks, Tim. That was aimed at me, I'm sure.
Tim, I'm feeling very, very relieved to know that only 23 is too young, because my daughter is 24 and she'll have her commercial pilot's license within the next month. So I'm glad she's just made it by 1 year, according to your standards.
So Rene, you've led right into the next question. I think your son and daughter work with you in Charlie Bravo Aviation. Is that correct?
They don't work with me, but they work in the industry. My son works at a company in Fort Worth that has management and maintenance for aircraft. They do Part 91 management, and then obviously have a Part 145 repair station. And then my daughter is just finishing her commercial pilot's license. She had her last IFR flight this morning before her IFR check ride. And then she's got 5 more lessons in commercial before she wraps up her commercial license. So she will not be working for me, but she will be gaining hours somewhere.
Good. Awesome. I can tell that she's just if you'll excuse the expression, she's a chip off the old block.
Well, thank you. And then she's getting married in May, and her fiance is an A&P.
Awesome. Keep it in the family.
More aviation in the family.
Good. So you do work with your husband, though, right?
I do.
So how do you like working with your family?
Well, this is kind of a loaded question, isn't it, Tom? Because you do the same thing.
Rene knows that I work with my wife, so that's why she said that.
We have these things in common. I think that this is an industry that's very friendly to families working together. There have been lots of great families that have been in the business together, especially in aircraft sales over the years. The McCunes, the Gants, the Fosters, the Foresters, the Silva brands, lots of great duos come to mind. I don't know of any other husband-wife teams that are in aircraft sales. So it's fun. I'm not going to say it doesn't present its challenges. When our kids were younger, our daughter would sit at the dinner table with her iPhone, and as soon as we started talking about work, she would start timing us so that she could inform us how much time we spent during dinner talking about work. But it worked because she's in the industry now as well. She finally got attracted to the industry. But it is challenging to find that balance between home and work when you work together.
Absolutely. So you already have one amazing book in the market. It's called Stand Up. Do you see another book for yourself on the horizon?
I'm working on a fiction book, and release date on that to be determined. I think for now, I've said what I want to say. From a business perspective, I actually have 2 books out. One's called Crushing Mediocrity, and then the other one's called Stand Up. Similar content. And so until I have something vastly different to say, I don't think I'll release another nonfiction book, but it's a good creative outlet for me to write. I have a journalism background, so writing is fun. And that's my hobby.
I understand completely. Personally, I've written a couple of novels and about 300 short stories because it's a release. I basically do it for myself.
Right, me too.
So, do you still have your podcast going?
I have 2 podcasts. One, I have a new episode coming out on defying the status quo tomorrow. Wednesday, and those will start rolling again. I found the Associate Dean of Ohio University, the Associate Dean for Sports Management, which is a very male-dominated industry. That podcast is one where I talk with women in different male-dominated industries around the world, race car driver, software engineer, flight attendant trainer, which is interesting. Stephanie Kisling was on my show. I've talked to people who work in the auto industry and the financial services industry in VC. It's been really fun to get to know women in other industries and hear what they're doing to change their workplaces. So that's one of my podcasts. And then the other one focuses on pilots, and I interview them about the planes that they fly. And the video of that gets published on Avbuyer's YouTube channel. But on my actual podcast, I dig in a little deeper and hear their stories. And Tom, truth is stranger than fiction, I'm telling you.
So you inadvertently led right into the next area of questioning. I know that you're heavily involved with IWA, which is the International Association of Women in Aviation. What are your goals relative to IWA in three things? 1 year goal, 3 year goal, 5 year goals.
Well, I'm only going to answer the first part of that because I've not renewed being on the board. And so those are 2 year board terms, and I've served 2 terms. I am on a committee right now for general aviation. I started in 2018, started a women's leadership forum for general aviation specifically because Iowa covers all gamuts of aviation and aerospace. So I did a forum, and then Shelley Sporen took it on last year and hosted one in Napa. Shelley moved to a different board position when I was stepping off the board, so handed the baton back to me so that I could manage this forum. And this will be the first time I even talk about it, Tom, but we've set the date for that as June 11th, and it'll be in White Plains, New York, sandwiched in between the NBAA regional that's in White Plains the day before and the US Open, which is the week after. So between planes and golf, we've sandwiched a women's leadership event that I am hoping that everyone will be able to participate in. I think it's going to be really exciting this year.
Awesome. Awesome. Can you give us a list of speakers at that event?
I am in negotiations with a couple of former fighter pilots. I'm not sure which one we'll end up settling on. And then I also have a...
Reach out to Martha McSally.
Okay. Well, send me your contact info.
Okay.
And then...
He's a U.S. Senator.
Okay.
Okay.
Is she a fighter pilot?
She was. Now she's just a fighter.
I didn't know that. Well, it's good to be a fighter. We need some of those in DC.
I agree.
Crazy times. And we're also going to have a session about sustainability because there are some companies doing some really interesting things about that. And then I know that we do have one pretty special speaker talking about work-life balance. So I think we'll have a good balance of leadership topics and also industry best practices or industry trends topics so that we're learning and growing in our personal development and in our professional development at the same time. That's the goal.
Well done. Also, do you want to tell us a little bit about your mentoring business or your coaching business and how people can get in touch with you about that?
Sure. The best thing to do is to go to, because this is the beauty of this, I don't sell it. I don't promote it other than a couple of mentions here and there on social media, but that's all through Michael Hyatt and Company. So if you go to Michael Hyatt, spelled like the hotel, you can look at the Business Accelerator program, and people can look at that. It's really geared toward executives and business owners with a business of a couple $1 million or more that are trying to grow, scale their business without compromising their personal life, or even scale their business and regain their personal life and health. So we really talk about the double win, which is our goal with that organization, which is being able to have success at life and wins at work at the same time.
Awesome. Awesome. I need to remind the audience that any questions you have for the top aircraft saleswoman in the United States, you need to ask those questions now. She's right here. She's available to you. So I'm going over my list of questions that I had for you, and I think you've answered most of them. Oh, I know. When I first met you several years ago, you had a series of training videos. I think it had to do with how to buy an airplane. Do you still promote those?
I still have those somewhere in the archives, and we're working on figuring out how to bring those out, probably as free material for people to go through, since they're already produced. But I'm not sure, Tom. That's a great question to ask my marketing team that we'll probably have an answer for in the next 4 to 6 months.
Okay, have them contact me because I like them, because I saw them, and I would love to help you promote them.
Well, sounds great. I appreciate that. So what trends are you seeing in aircraft purchasing right now? You see the legal end of it. What are you seeing?
Well, first of all, I don't just deal in jets. I also have clients that have spent as little as $100,000 on airplanes, so I have a lot of prop aircraft. And I see the same life and enthusiasm that in general is being reflected in the economy. I see hope in the future that didn't exist 4 or 5 years ago. And it's hard to talk about that and not get off on a political rant, because I have to give all the credit to the guy in the White House. He's brought a whole different attitude into the marketplace. So there's hope. There's people starting to see futures. There's unemployment numbers going down, which is good for everybody. And I mean everybody, whether you got a D or an R or an I after your name, it's good for you if everybody is working and their wages are going up and they're paying less money to the government. So I feel that, and I'm sure you feel the same thing. And it doesn't matter whether you're spending $100,000 on an airplane or $100 million on an airplane. You're still existing in the same economy. You still take the same steps to improve your own personal economy and your wealth. And it affords you bigger, better, faster airplanes. And as you were talking about in the trends, the upgrade, I see a lot of that going on. In fact, I count on it in my business, because that's how I get clients to come back and re-engage me, because it's like in your business, if you sell a guy an airplane, once you deliver the airplane, from the beginning of the idea of them buying an airplane to taking delivery of the airplane, that's a cycle of action. But if you, as a business owner, you stay in communication with them and continue to provide good service for them from a viewpoint of what I use called give, where I give away so much stuff free, the intention on my part is that they'll come back and they're always a customer of mine. And, you know, that's what I see. I think it's the most optimistic that in general the entire population of the United States, with the exception of the Democrats in Congress, it's the best time ever, absolutely ever. And I'm over 70 years old, and I don't ever remember hearing this, including when Reagan was president. So you asked and I answered.
I love it. Well, you lived in Reagan's backyard. Did you live there at the time?
Well, I went to 17 different schools before I got out of high school. So asking me where I lived is a bunch of different points. So it's the way I grew up. I've always had this kind of gypsy pattern of moving around. And no, my father was not in the service. He was a general contractor, and he worked for large corporations, and they would move him around. So I've lived in places like Reno, Nevada, Tallahassee, Florida, Santa Cruz, a couple of different times in the Sacramento area. I lived a long time in Alaska, which is why I hate cold weather. I will not go any place it snows. I don't understand why people live where it snows. It makes no sense to me. I remember when I first came to California and I saw people getting in their cars. I was in Sacramento and watching them drive up into the mountains to go skiing. To me, snow is just bad weather. That's my viewpoint of snow. I know it's pretty, but I don't want to be in it. It's cold. It's very cold.
Mom, stop talking. We want all the people on who live in the north to stay in the north so it's not too crowded in the warm areas where we live.
I've heard that before. I'm still going to tell my story.
Well, what else can I answer for you about aircraft or business development in the aviation industry today? Are there any additional questions? Do the girls in your office have any?
Dallas sent me a question. What should we be expecting to see from Charlie Bravo Aviation this year?
I imagine that you're going to see some new and interesting things, but I am not ready to share what those are yet.
That's called a mystery sandwich, by the way. Now everybody wants to know. So stay hooked up with Rene. You can find her on the web. If you want to send an email to me, I'll give you her phone number. I'll give you her email address, and she'll be glad to let you know.
Just don't give them my credit card number, Tom. That's all I ask.
Well, let me have it, and let me check and make sure that I have the same one that you do. Okay.
Perfect.
So how are you keeping your 2020 vision for 2020?
Well, I'm particularly focused on vision for this year. It's kind of my buzzword for the year. And one of the things that we do at Michael Hyatt & Company is talk about vision scripting and about scripting a vision for your business and coming up with a 3-year plan for the business and then chunking that down into quarterly goals. And some of those goals I handle personally. Some of those goals fall on other people. But it's a strategic plan to take our business to where we want it to be 3 to 5 years from now. Shoot, even just 6 months from now, working diligently on those goals. So I review my vision every month. I work on a goal or two that's strategic, kind of outside of the whirlwind of my normal work and the normal transactions. I have a couple of goals per quarter that are business development or strategic kinds of goals that I work on. And then I have a planning retreat at the beginning of every year to set the vision for the next year, kind of revisit my 3-year vision, see if I need to tweak it all, and make sure that I'm doing the right strategic things for the next year. I mean, you saw a little bit of that last year when I rolled out a partnership with Avfire and started doing some videos for them and launching a pilot podcast. So you'll see some plays on that this year and a little bit more in-depth interaction based on the feedback that I've gotten from that. So vision, you have to keep it in front of you.
How much are you using social media to present yourself to the marketplace?
Well, there's a lot of that going on YouTube and then podcasts. So those two things a lot. We do some advertising on LinkedIn and Facebook with our aircraft, and that gets lots of eyeballs on the aircraft. It also directs a lot of people to our website. We have probably 600 unique visitors to our blog every day on an annual basis. And so that's pretty good traffic for being in such a small niche. And so having social media drive people to the blog, which gives them a little bit more in-depth information and pushes them a little bit deeper into their interaction with our company, is really important. But social media is really surface touch point. And the thing that it does best is branding. And I was at a Facebook advertising session at a marketing conference recently, and the guy who's made all sorts of millions of dollars off of Facebook advertising said people will see your ad or your sponsored link on Facebook dozens of times before they buy. And so keeping visible on social media is very important, but I don't really count on social media for leads. It's branding.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I think social media posting is a lot like buying a billboard, but your message only shows for 5 seconds. So not only are you relying on the traffic that goes by and looks at your post, it's there for a very, very, very short amount of time. So Rene uses the word branding. I know that's a very, very popular word, but the number one problem in all businesses is obscurity. And there's 2 parts of that. One of them is people don't know you. And the other one, which is frightening to people like me, is people who know you but forget about you. So our company, we do a lot of posting. In fact, I'm going to give credit to Dallas in my office. A year ago, we were posting 1,300 pieces a month. And last month, we did almost 40,000. So it's really, really important that you really embrace what that can do from you from a long-term perspective. And then I want to address something that Rene said about goals, goal setting. I am a Grant Cardone follower. Rene follows Michael Hyatt. Pick one. Pick one. Don't try to mix 2 because they're going to confuse you because they're going to have slightly different messages. Grant encourages you to write your goals every night, right before you go to sleep, and every morning when you wake up. So I do that, and it has made a tremendous amount of difference in my ability to expand my business and to reach people. We have done as much as 1.5 million emails in a month. We make 2,000 phone calls every week. We're always pushing messages out into the marketplace. And I also, like Rene, am a Grant Cardone. Well, she does Michael Hyatt's program. I do Grant Cardone's program. So I present his material to people. I can do the trainings. I offer myself available to you for trainings. Just pick an area in your business that you need fixed, call me, and I'll put together a program for you. But as you can see, Rene and I are kindred spirits. We believe in people. We want to help people, not just people in aviation. Anybody who has a situation in their life that they want to get better, you can talk to either one of us about it. We'll have slightly different approaches. We're not completely the same, but the one thing I can guarantee you is if you follow one of us, you'll be successful. So somebody just asked me a question. Did I put a lot of pressure on you with that statement, Rene?
No, not at all. I mean,
Okay.
I don't sell that. It's all sold through Michael Hyatt and Company. So I'm happy to participate. It's their program. It's
now,
not
if you notice that I keep disappearing off the screen, it's because these questions are coming up on my computer.
I saw that.
I have to lean over to read it. So
this one says, how did you kickstart your successful career in aviation sales and acquisitions? It was not kickstarted. So if you do the math and go back 12 years exactly in U.S. history, you'll see that it's just before the recession. So our business, when it started in February, and the bottom dropped out of the general aviation market probably in July of that year, about the same time the big 3 automakers were presenting to Nancy Pelosi. And so my career in aircraft sales and acquisitions as the head of this company had a very slow start, which also made me strategic. So one of the strategic things that we did was explore the options and the opportunities that we would have being certified as a woman-owned company, which coincidentally put me into a CEO position that I really didn't feel equipped for. So I started learning. I read books. I signed up for seminars. I joined peer mentoring groups. And I still do all of that stuff today. It made me very interested in growing myself professionally and personally. And that has translated into really becoming better and better at what I do every year. And so I think the growth and the intentional growth has probably been the most strategic thing that I've done. I study other industries. I study other aspects of this industry to try to get better at what I do. And I think there was a carry on. I think I answered that specifically. What was a key factor in your success besides hard work and consistency? And it's a lot of hard work, and it's a lot of tenacity. It's a lot of keeping going even when you feel like quitting. And it's a lot of purposeful growth in business skills and in marketing.
So when you set your goals for Charlie Bravo Aviation, is it done in units sold or dollars generated?
My goals for Charlie Bravo Aviation are usually more strategic. So of course we have targets, units sold and financial targets, but my goals line up more with improving hiring processes, rolling out new products, investigating strategies from other industries, or things that will really cause my company to develop and our platform to develop and provide more value to our clients. And it's not like my financial targets don't necessarily find themselves on my strategic goal sheet. They do find themselves on Kurt's goal sheet, but not necessarily mine. I don't carry a sales quota, even though I do participate in sales. I don't carry a sales quota as part of my KPIs for the business.
Got it. Do you see that question that came through to you?
Oh, goodness. Getting into the aircraft sales industry is tough. And it was interesting. Jeff Ramsden from Ramjet and I were at an NBAA regional in January, and we both do the same thing. And we both came into it from a very different perspective. And then my husband came into it a different way. So Kurt came in to aircraft sales and acquisitions by being a researcher and learning about the markets before he was selling airplanes. So that's probably the most common way to come into aircraft sales. I came into the industry through a family connection, which would be my husband. He was working for a company that bought and sold planes, and they needed help with their marketing. And so I came in and helped redesign their website and develop marketing materials for them before we started Charlie Bravo. Jeff Ramsden and my friend Andy Grattan, who lives in Sweden, started out being around airplanes, being a line guy at an FBO and really learning about the airplanes and making connections, and then moving gradually up into aircraft sales. You could also get a start in charter sales, because you'll get familiar with talking with the types of people that you need to interact with and be proficient in speaking with. Because the people who have the money to charter the plane, sometimes, not always, have the money or intention to buy an airplane. So you can kind of ease your way into it like that. But it is a tough, tough industry. There aren't rules. So it's hard to get ahead sometimes when there aren't guidelines and rules, and you just have to kind of figure it out on your own. It would be a lot easier if there was a clear path like there is in becoming an attorney or becoming a real estate broker. For instance, there's a licensing process that you go through, and it trains you how to do the things that professionals do. I love my friend Brian Proctor talks about, it takes more hours of training and a stricter licensing process to cut people's hair than to sell an airplane. And so
I know that to be completely true.
those things make it tough to get into the industry because there isn't a clear path. And I'm sorry it didn't perfectly answer your question, but if you're determined enough, there are ways to get in, and it really is networking with who you think might be able to help you and who you could help in the process.
I agree completely. It's you know that I do training. You know that I have very specific training patterns and training procedures in my business, and then we all do the Cardone University to learn how to do sales and objections and that stuff. But it's not going to teach you how to be an aircraft salesman. I will tell you this: that if you want to be an aircraft salesman, start making a list of all of the terms that you hear pilots or people in the aircraft industry using and look them up. Make sure that you understand the nomenclature, because there's a whole different language that happens in this industry that it will not necessarily communicate to standard average English. And you need to learn that. Otherwise, it's going to be hard for you to communicate with people. Would you agree with that, Rene?
I would. I actually have a resource for that. If you go to wepush10.com/resources, there's a page on my website where you can sign up for market reports. I do have a private aviation glossary there that I created a few years back. So I don't know, there are 400 or 500 terms in there, and you can download that for free and see some of the other resources that we have for people in the industry and our buyers available on that page.
In our company, we have what we call a keyword list for what we do. Now, I'm primarily in the aviation and vessel tax business, so it combines the aviation nomenclature with the tax nomenclature, so it's a different kind of list. But Rene and I both know that if you want to start doing something, you have to understand the nomenclature of that business. Otherwise, you're going to be lost. You're going to try communicating with people with words that don't communicate to them. So you might as well be talking to them in either Swahili or Chinese. But all of this is available. Go to Rene's website, which is WePush10, and look it up. Make yourself available to that. If you truly have a goal of getting into the aviation sales, Rene has said this to you, you have to take responsibility for your own education. I don't know of anyone who will hire a sales trainee in the aviation industry who has a program that teaches you how to become an aircraft salesperson. I'm not aware of it. I wish I owned it. I wish I owned the technology, because I'd help you a lot. But there's a question. No, someone's asking. It's we push
WE
TIN 10, not 10.
WEPUSHTIN.com. It's or you can go to charliebravoaviation.com and it will reroute you to our other website. But that came from goes back to your question about working with your family member. I thought at the very beginning that we should have a really good name for our company. And my husband thought that Pushing 10 would be a great name for the company. So our URL is our compromise. Pushing 10 is the name of a movie, so it wasn't available to purchase. But We Push 10 was available to purchase. So that's how we ended up with that as our URL instead of Charlie Bravo Aviation. But you can get to it if you type in Charlie Bravo Aviation. It's pretty easy to search. And then once you get there, just do a /resources and you'll get to that tab.
So did I understand you correctly? Your original name of the company was We Push 10 and it morphed into Charlie Bravo?
It's always been Charlie Bravo. It was a pre-Secretary of State filing discussion.
Got it. The original name for my company, the current name is Aero Marine Tax Professionals. The original name for my company is Legally Avoid Sales Tax. I discovered in the first year that that was too in your face for a lot of people in this industry. And I'm talking about the aviation as well as the vessel industry. I still love it as a name. I still use it in all my marketing, but I changed it to Aero and Marine Tax Professionals. So
Yes,
we have similar paths.
my argument to you would be the same as mine was to my husband, which is it's a great tagline. It's not a good company name.
Okay, you win, as did my marketing guy said, okay, go ahead, but be ready to change it. So he warned me, and Renee warns me all the time because she knows I like to go right directly at things, and please don't take this as a criticism. She has a much softer approach. She's just as direct as I am, but she has a softer approach.
I've heard that comes with the gender identity over here.
Say that again.
I hear that softer approach is a natural byproduct of my gender identity, which is
okay.
female, by the way.
I'll let you have that one. We can argue about that at the next time we get together.
Sounds good.
All right.
That's a good cocktail conversation.
I think that's going to be the end of our interview. If you need more, write questions in. I'm going to give you 30 seconds. If not, we're going to end this. And I'm going to tell you something about Renee, and she's not going to like this. She's the youngest person I know. Go ahead, think about that. You are always lively. You always have this youthful enthusiasm about it. It wasn't gender related at all, was it? You thought I was going there.
No, I didn't. I had no idea what you were going to say, but I'm just dumbfounded because that feels like a big, big compliment. Because I think I had a big birthday a couple weeks ago.
You didn't invite me to your party, so I don't know anything about it. So there you go. I really intended that to come across the way that it did. I love being in this lady's presence. You should get to know her. She can make your life better, and she's a lot of fun to be around. And Renee, that's going to be the end of today's event. Is there anything you'd like to say in closing?
No, Tom, thank you so much for having me. It's always fun to debate with you. We didn't get nearly as testy today as we normally do when we chat, and I appreciate that we developed a great rapport talking about the things that we talk about in business and marketing and social media, and of course in aircraft. So thank you so much for inviting me to join you today, and I look forward to seeing you at an industry event soon. Okay.
Now, I'm going to say something about Renee again. There's very, very few people that I admire as much as Rene Banglesdorf, because she deserves it. She takes care of people like a mom, and I appreciate that completely. So we are ending this event, and thank you all for being here. If you have any comments, criticisms, anything, email them to me or Dallas, and we'll take care of it as soon as possible. Renee,